All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. My name's Luke. You're currently in the software development and entertainment session here with Mr. Ravi Kiran. He's a lead engineer who focuses on the development of streaming media. He has multiple years under his belt, and hopefully he has an amazing presentation for us.
Sure.
Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Luke. Welcome, guys. Thanks for the nice introduction, and I think you covered a bit of what I was supposed to say about myself. I'll go about my background and my progression and the skills I acquired. So I'm Ravi. I graduated in electronics and communication engineering and landed my first job in Philips. Philips is a big semiconductor and consumer electronic companies. Landing the first job, your first job where you work, in my view, plays a very big role in the rest of your career. For example, my first project was on set-top boxes, writing applications on set-top boxes. And then I went to TVs and DVDs and so on and so forth in Philips itself for 4 years. Fast forward 20 years, I'm still working with set-top boxes every now and then. Yeah. So because the skills that you develop in your first job, the domain, the language that you get, people, when you want to shift jobs, when people look at your resume, the relevant people, the relevant companies will be interested in you. For example, Bank of America, if they see my resume, they will throw it away and I don't look at them either because we have no common ground at all. Yeah. So as I said, from the first job, I progressed into another company where I joined for only for a brief period of time, for a couple of years that I worked on non-audio video domain. That's when I was working in Japan for a couple of years with Kyosaramita, a printer company. And then I again shifted back into my domain, consumer electronics companies, Panasonic. They moved me from Japan to America. And from Panasonic, I worked in Sony for 10 years, where I worked with Brigo. From Sony to Cash Labs, a DRM company, a security company. We are going to talk a little bit about security because I think you guys mostly have a background in security. And last couple of years, I'm with Warner Brothers. Basically, I joined in Discovery and Warner Brothers merged, and now we are Warner Brothers Discovery. Yeah. Initially, when I joined in the company in Philips, I just know how to program in Java, only Java programming language. Don't have any programming skills. It's a big difference between programming and language. For example, if given an array and find a maximum element in it, writing a code for it is programming. I mean, you can do it in any language, right? So probably at that point, I didn't even know how to find maximum element in an array. But I can create an object, I can call functions, etc., etc. So that's tough because I'm coming from electronics background with no computer science, whereas computer science graduates can quickly spin such things. Yeah. So we have to learn programming. Not knowing just language is not enough. Yeah. Particularly for non-CS guys. And then I met my first architect, who is a brilliant guy. I was in awe of him and inspired by him, and he's famous. He's pretty good at design patterns. So since he's so excited about design patterns, so I jumped in and bought a Gang of Four book and then learned Gang of Four patterns, etc. Then architecture, and as I was working on the domain, in the same domain, I picked up the audio video fundamentals. Since then, I'm with the audio video industry. Yeah. Lately, of course, I manage teams. I kind of built teams from scratch. I interviewed and mentored, etc., etc. Yeah, that's about the background. Let's the next important. Let's get to the crux of the presentation. We're talking about software jobs in IT, in entertainment rather. It's much more relevant to us because we are located in LA Basin. LA is famous for content creation, right? So anything related to content, you can find jobs related here. They don't go to the Bay Area or elsewhere. They come here for the content, and they want to create content. Writers are here, etc., etc. In the entertainment industry, shall we say, gaming is different. Partly there is a little small overlap. That's why LA is also center for the gaming industry. You can see quite a bit of companies if you go to the Playa del Rey area, etc. Let's talk about the entertainment in general. Let's say either movies or TV series. It starts with the content. Writers put the content, and then it goes into the product, into the studios. They make a movie. Once the movie is released, that's when the post-production or home entertainment begins. That's where my expertise or my area lives. What's meant by home entertainment is like the theater phase is over. The content has captured enough money there, and now they want to still get money out of the rest. And that's when they make the Blu-ray discs or DVDs, and or they get into they convert that into streaming content and then dish it to us. We consume it via either cell phone or TVs or computers. Yeah. So I cannot speak much till the content comes to after the post-production. I mean, once the theatrical release is done, now the content is ready to be consumed for home entertainment. Yeah, probably there used to be like 30-40 days time between theatrical release is done and the home entertainment begins. Previous to earlier to the streaming area that I worked in, I used to work for the Blu-ray disc development. Worked there from 2008 to 2014, I think. Panasonic Laboratories and Sony Pictures Entertainment. So the jobs there, it's called packaged media. We used to make the DVDs and the Blu-ray discs and UHD discs from the movie. The industry used to be pretty good at the time because there was no streaming. So there were quite a lot of jobs there at that point in time from 2007 to 2014. Just when that's when the streaming actually picked up the steam, and the people are not buying any more DVDs and Blu-ray discs. They switch to the streaming. So since there is no money, those companies have to shut down. When you get chance with the Brigu, you can ask him for more details because he's a veteran there too. Those days, the programming is primarily done in Java programming language. So fortunately, I was with the Sony Pictures, and then another Sony group is interested in our expertise, which is Sony PlayStation. So they have a streaming app. It's called PlayStation Video. So quite a few of us from Sony Pictures moved into the Sony PlayStation to work on the streaming media. Streaming media. So let's talk about the streaming media. Streaming media, just like what I said about pre-production to post-production, in streaming media, we use the word called glass to glass. What is the glass? The first glass is how you shoot the movie, because you have a lens and then you shoot the content. And the glass to glass, the second glass is the one that you are watching, either the computer screen or TV screen, etc. So this glass to glass. So this one, this covers a big spectrum of areas and a lot of jobs there. I primarily work on the receiver side. That's where the device that actually displaying the content, like either a laptop or a TV or a phone. So we drive the applications inside it and I write it. So this is a random one. I randomly picked this morning to show the architecture or where the jobs are, different jobs like. Can you see my pointer too?
Yeah, we can see it.
Fantastic. So somewhere here, the content is created for streaming. And then this is one glass, and this is the one which we call the receiver device. I work primarily in this area, and then every now and then we have a problem. I work with the engineering managers on this side as well. Let's say to the left of it, we can say back end. To the right of it is the front end. Ton of jobs in the receiver side. Primarily, the receivers are the laptops or computers. That's where I primarily work on. And then mobile devices like Android, iPhone, and Roku. Roku is a big deal here in America. Yeah, and then the set-top boxes and consoles like PlayStation and Xbox, etc., etc. Yeah, so the different kinds of skills or programming languages we use on the receiver are like in the case of web, we heavily use TypeScript, which is a wrapper around JavaScript. JavaScript is a big deal now. Ever since the OTT gained momentum, it used to look down on that till 2014, and ever since streaming gained momentum, oh boy, JavaScript is the real deal. And then we have Android programming languages for mobile devices, Android mobiles and iOS. Similarly, Roku has something called BrightScript, but these are all at the crux of all these languages. They are all same. I mean, if you know the programming, you can switch to any language. For loop is a for loop in any language, right? Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the point I missed was when I started my career, I used to write my primary language was Java. But then when I had to work on the printer devices, it was written in C++. So since before joining as an engineer in the Java programming language, I learned C++ in my college days. So with that, I jumped on C++, and somewhere we have to write the test cases, and then lately all the test scripts used to be written in Python. So yeah, Python, and then I had to switch to the PlayStation at the time. So there is it was written in JavaScript, so I jumped into JavaScript. The point I'm trying to say is you you will not be sticking to one particular language in your career. You would be your manager would be asking you to, hey, can you take this, and then let's say a microservice, and then if it is written in JavaScript, you jump to JavaScript. If it is Kotlin, jump to Kotlin, etc., etc. So don't stick yourself with a single language. Those days are over. Back in the day, when I started, if you learn one language, C, I mean, they can retire in C. You can still do that, but probably you will not get good growth. Be ready to switch languages, because the newer languages, they fix all the bugs that the design bugs that the traditional or legacy languages had, and they are pretty robust in that sense. And particularly they are meant for a specific situations. So pretty cool languages. So jump to whenever you get an opportunity to write a code in different language. Yeah. Right. Okay. Let me briefly look into the other side of the receiver, the backend. These are there are a whole bunch of jobs here, like the people who write microservices, people who gather the data coming from the client, put it in the S3 buckets, and then retrieve the data and prepare the presentation, visualization, so that we know exactly what's going on in the field, whether there are crashes or if people are experiencing rebuffers, etc. Yeah, so the languages they use on this side of the world is basically Go, Java, and I don't know. I mean, there are quite a few frameworks that they use, Kafka and etc. etc. Yeah, so plenty of jobs on this side as well. So I was trying to see like what kind of jobs that they are there. So the best one I kind of figured where the organization in terms of jobs. So I thought this is the best one. So I'm showing it. Client and UI engineering, that's on the receiver. That's where that's what I was talking about. So when you launch HBO Max, you will see nice Game of Thrones, so on and so forth, tiles, and you click it, and the description comes, and then there is a watch button. You press watch, then the video starts. So till now, you are in the client and UI engineering part of it. Basically, the relevant language there, either the JavaScript or the iOS language. Yeah, that's the client and UI engineering. Content engineering is mostly related to the content itself. The data science engineering is very interesting. Earlier, there was no use of AI in the streaming, but lately, AI is finding its role. Let's say both in the on the server side as well as on the client side. On the server side, let's say there is something called encoding jobs, where you get a video, 10 MB, 10 GB of video. Because we transfer the 10 GB of video to the client would be painful because the network will not allow you. So you have to compress that 10 GB into like maybe 40 MB, so let's say 1 GB. So you need a technology, or you need a compression technology to convert the 10 GB of video into 1 GB. That's a big science. That's where research and say the cool jobs are, because that's where you can also use the AI skills to analyze the video and to decide, okay, I can discard this video, I can discard this frame, keep this frame, so on and so forth. So much of AI is involved in the video encoding part of it. That's where the primary role. On the receiver side, it's gaining momentum lately. For example, decides like how much of network bandwidth it's going to be in the next 5-10 seconds, and fetch the relevant file. So primarily right now it is used to predict the bandwidth the client will have in the next few seconds. Yeah. So studio technologies, probably they are all located in LA, like when the content comes and how to convert that into files and so on and so forth. Not much engineering there. It's games. So that's the kind of roles that you see in the OTT companies. Yeah. Let me see. Yeah, that's. But I think this particular graph will give you the the picture of varieties of the roles in from the point of software. If you are looking at the product and program, again, for every 10 engineers, you will have one program engineer, program manager there. Yeah, I think I covered the role, but we have enough time to take questions from you, and either on the jobs or anything related to my experience. I'll take the questions, and then we'll spend some time on how to prepare and what kind of difficulty questions that we expect in interviews. Yeah. All right.
So
awesome.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say we have a question right here.
Yes.
Okay. So the viewer asks if you could explain the difference between software development versus like the video game software development. Their goal is to get into the gaming industry, but they would like to you to highlight maybe the difference between the pipeline between making content for like Netflix versus content for something like Blizzard Entertainment or Riot.
Right. As part of my Blu-ray days, in my Blu-ray experience, I wrote a few games, but they are not video-centric one. They are static games, whereas the games that you see in Riot and all others are heavy, the video centric ones. They are pretty costly to make. I think they take a couple of years or few years to make, I believe. Yeah. The one that you see in my either Netflix or with Warner Brothers, we have two different kind of videos here. Live video, for example, the one that we are still seeing the screen. Live video, that's when we actually watch the content that's happening inside in the stadium or any live concert. Or WOD content. WOD content is like you watch a movie that was made 2 years back or 10 years back. It's static. It's not going to change. Yeah. So the closest thing that the gaming, from my point of view, is the live video, because for example, if you are moving in a particular scenario in a game, so dynamically the video would be changing. So they have to generate that content at the back end and then feed you. Yeah, that's from the video point of view. Software point of view, it's much more. I would expect the complexity of the game would be a little more difficult than the static the video playback, because for the video playback typically, yeah, you will have one thread and then you are pretty good at it. Whereas the game, you would be animating quite a few elements inside the screen. So for those animations, probably you would be needing a little more threads than a single threaded programs. Yeah, I would expect the complexity wise a little more intensive there. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you again for the question. We had another one here. What would the average time expectancy be when using a new language? Do you understand that question?
Mhm.
Or okay, great.
Yeah, so your first language is the one that takes quite a bit of time. The constructs and let's say, I think I started with C and C++ and I jumped into Java. My production years were in Java. Learning from C++ to Java was pretty easy. I would say maybe I took about 5-6 months to really understand the Java constructs, etc. From Java to, let's say, Python, probably took me a couple of weeks. Or the thing is, you don't buy a book and then start to read to learn a new language, because you're already working, and you can just start looking at the code. You will understand 80% of the code actually, if you are a object-oriented programmer, and if you're jumping into another object-oriented programming language, it's pretty easy. You don't need a book. I mean, I buy a ton of books. I encourage you to read books and buy books. That's it. But you don't need to sit down and then go over the entire thing again, because the constructs are same, the functions are same, etc. But when you are jumping from one paradigm to another paradigm, let's say procedural to object-oriented, or object-oriented to pure functional programming, that's the difficulty. At least that's what I found. For example, jumping from Java to JavaScript. Java is object-oriented, JavaScript is functional programming. Whatever we learned till then don't work in this one. Of course, 50% or 60% would be still the same, because you can see the for loops and all are same, but the object is not the same object. The functions are not same. Functions in JavaScript are first-class citizens, whereas in Java, till I left, is not. I think lately they added as a first-class citizen, which what I mean by that is you can pass function as a parameter in another function, which is not the case in Java. But so it would be, you would break your head to understand like what's happening here. And the mistake that we do is, when you are learning from one language to other, we take the same kind of confidence or a bit of arrogance that, yeah, I can do it. And just like I explained, like when I jumped from Java to Python, yeah, we expect that it comes just like that. When we find it's not the case, that the paradigm is different, then we find it difficult. So yeah, you would expect a little bit of difficulty when changing from one paradigm to the other. Pure functional programming languages are quite difficult, at least in my experience. Yeah.
I know you mentioned you did a lot of JavaScript programming. In your field, did you find that you were doing more functional programming than you were doing object-oriented, or was it kind of a 50-50?
I would say 50-50, but lately, as I said, JavaScript, Java turned into Java. Java is now also functional programming, at least from 8, I think. JavaScript also, Java from ECMA 6 onwards, I think they introduced the classes, and then it's quite a heavy in terms of object-oriented too. So we use, let's say, 50-50 or still 70%, 80% of it in object-oriented and 30%. I'll give you an example. A couple of years back, I was asked to work on one particular project, which was pure functional programming. I broke my head to understand that. I was not alone. Anybody who comes into it, into the project, they found it very, very difficult too, because we are trained, or most of my years were in object-oriented, and then this new paradigm was a challenge. And we find it difficult to get engineers for that too. Like, people who come into it can't understand it easily. It takes a few months for them to get into the groove and to understand. So what we did was, like, it's not feasible because we cannot get engineers to work on it. So we kind of give a bit of freedom, and then made it a little more object-oriented so that a fresh engineer can come in and work on it. Yeah. So, yeah.
That makes sense. Someone in the chat asked to clarify, isn't JavaScript similar to PHP and more of web development?
I never worked on PHP, so I can't answer that. Yeah, it's web development is primarily in JavaScript, right? From the beginning, if I'm right. So, yeah. I mean, I can compare with any languages that I worked on.
So I know a lot of people here are primarily in the cybersecurity field, and they would really like to work in the entertainment industry with cybersecurity. Do you have any recommendations of languages to learn that are more designed to protect media or defend against, say, DDoS attacks on a streaming service?
Yeah, fantastic question. That's I almost forgot. In the streaming area, or even in the packaged media, security is very important. Studios take it very seriously. If they think that before, let's say, 20th Century Fox, they want to give their content to Netflix or HBO Max, they make sure that we protect the content that they are giving. Otherwise, it will end up in YouTube or in somewhere. YouTube won't do that. Somewhere else where people can download it and watch, right? So they will lose the revenue. Yeah. So the technologies evolved. In the streaming world, we call that as DRM, digital rights management. It's a pretty big thing. Almost all the content from any of these companies that I mentioned, they are encrypted. Encryption and decryption are just like I use the word encoding and decoding a video. Encryption and decryption are very, very important functions in the streaming space. Encryption, I am pretty sure you guys are experts there rather than me. Language-wise, most of it is done. I mean, at least I worked in one DRM company where they used the Java language. I think they were switching to Rust at that time or something in those lines. So Rust also plays a pretty good role in that, but Java was the language. There are two algorithms that are in play. One is AES 128-bit encryption. The second one is RSA algorithm. So the public key and algorithm is in picture as well. There are companies like the one that I work with, Cache Labs, DRM Today, Nagra. All these companies are in the business of protecting the content. So, for example, any IT for a company like Netflix, probably they will not have the expertise or they don't want to do it. So what they do is they approach one of the companies like the 5-6 companies I mentioned to help the DRM framework to get in play. So those companies will provide the DRM services to the company. Yeah. So that's one area, but the other one is OTP, one-time password. Probably you guys know it, right? So you flash the one-time password in a chip, so that works as the root certificate when you are sending a request to the backend. You need to sign with that certificate, right? So to make sure that your device is the proper device, we flash the OTP in it. Yeah, so that one is in C programming language, but that's not many. I don't see many jobs there, but the companies that I mentioned, the DRM companies, yeah, Java, Rust, I would say.
I know for me, I haven't really heard of Rust. Could you talk about that programming language just a little bit? Is it similar to Python? Is it similar to Java? I see here it's multi-paradigm, so it's probably maybe a mix.
Lately, these languages, I never opened and worked on it, but I'm pretty sure the multi-paradigm is what is ruling the roost these days, right? Be it JavaScript or Java coming into multi-paradigm one. Yeah. Maybe they take advantage of the hardware that they are running on. Otherwise, if it is not the case, this can be done by Java or any other language. So that's the angle that I would expect it more efficient than the other languages, exploiting the hardware.
Yeah, that makes sense. With a lot of students here, we are individuals who don't have a lot of experience in the field. Where should we find, say, those opportunities to step into the cybersecurity field or the entertainment industry?
Because you guys, I mean, the first one is you jump into as a interns or a fresh engineer, right? So it doesn't matter what you learned so far. So because it's the first job is you're going a pre-ticket, but after 3-4 years, it's a different ball game. Yeah. So companies normally they come for hunting for interns or hunting for engineers in a particular season, if I'm right. It happened with when I was working with Panasonic, the lead engineers used to go to the relevant colleges closest to them or the colleges that they are associated and pick the engineers. prepare for I mean interviews. I'm pretty sure you guys are heard of Gale book. What is that name? Programming Interviews Exposed. Yeah, that's the famous book. Be prepared. These days, interviews are competitive, and particularly if you are a fresh graduate, people would expect you to be good with the basic algorithm skills, basic data structure skills like trees and heaps. Of course, arrays. Be very, very good in those ones.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You don't have to be work in graphs or dynamic programming. It's pretty rare for the people to ask those questions, but you really need to be pretty fluent in writing code for simple data structures like arrays and linked lists. Linked lists are still asked, so they are popular.
Great. I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of CSUDH for coming and all the attendees here. I personally learned a lot, and I hope everyone did too. I know I have multiple friends and fellow classmates who are also very interested in the entertainment industry and would really like to apply our skills there. So I would just like to let everyone know we have plenty more excellent panelists coming up. It is now the top of the hour.